Hey, Thunder of Zeus here. This is going to be the first video of a series called Just Tips, and today's tip is don't build your deck selfishly. You can't just build a deck to work on its own. You have to build your deck so that it'll stop your opponent's decks as well, and it has to be built towards the meta. So, for example, for the March 1st, 2011 meta, you're going to be worrying about Gravekeepers, Dragoonides, probably Heroes, stuff like that. So these are cards not for your side deck, but for your main board that you can just throw into almost any deck and it'll help you against today's meta. The first card is Mind Crush. Most decks are running searchers like Commandant, Recruiter, Xian Smoke Signal, Sanguine, Dark Soul, Terraforming, Pot of Duality even. If they have to show you the card that they search out or just add to hand, so you can just flip Mind Crush and call that card, and they discard all the cards in their hand with the same name. So that can be really helpful. And then Royal Oppression will stop your opponent's big plays and keep them at bay once you already have your setup. If you're sitting there with a Stardust on your front row and then like a Solemn Warning, a Royal Oppression, and like a Solemn Judgment in your back row, you don't have to really worry about your own special summoning. You just have to stop your opponent from getting anything on the board to destroy your Stardust. So you just flip the Oppression and you just poke 25 every turn if you can. Royal Decree, it stops your opponent's traps, and it's a really trap heavy format. If you don't have a lot of space for traps in your deck, then you can just throw in 3 Decree and it'll bring your opponent down to your level, put a lot of dead cards in their deck if they can't get rid of it with an MST quickly. It also works alongside Royal Oppression if you want to special summon but you want to stop your opponent's plays, because you just flip the Oppression during their turn, and then once it gets to your turn and you want to special summon, you just flip the Royal Decree. So once they finally get rid of your Decree because they're tired of not having their own traps, they're dealing with Royal Oppression again. Next card is 7 Tools of the Bandit. Again, trap heavy format, and you're going to have to be dealing with Magatama from Samurai. You're going to have to deal with Solemn Warning, Solemn Judgment, all of these things in almost every deck, with the exception of Magatama, of course, because it's archetype specific. So 7 Tools is just really great. You just pay 1,000 life points. You could play 2 Solemn Warnings, a Solemn Judgment, and a 7 Tools all in the same duel. Next card obviously is going to be Solemn Warning. You should be running 2 copies of this in just about every deck. It stops normals, inherents, specials, all kinds of things. Like, there's no way that your opponent can get past this card without negating it. Like, it stops every kind of summon in the game. So if your opponent's even just flipping a Raikou to destroy your Necro Valley and you really don't want him to, then you can just Solemn Warning. If they get something to swing over your Xian, you just Solemn Warning it and your Xian sticks around for a while longer. It's just a really useful card and should be maxed out in every deck now that's semi-limited. Thunder King Ryo, it's a 19 beat stick, and cards can't be added to hand, and you contribute him to negate a special summon. So he stops Pot of Duality and all those searchers we mentioned earlier, which is really helpful for slowing your opponent down, and in order to get rid of him, they're probably going to have to special summon, because he's 19, which is basically the highest normal summonable attack that you're going to encounter. So you can just tribute him, negate their special summon, and then have a lot of time to set up your own field. Effect Veiler is especially useful because Book is down to 1, so lots of people are putting 1 or 2 Effect Veilers in to replace their Book of Moon. It stops your opponent's big plays, like if they summon a Kageki and expect to make a first turn Xian, then you just drop your Effect Veiler and they're left with this useless weak monster on their side of the field, and you ruin their Xian play so they can't do it next turn, assuming you have something to swing over it. And it's also very versatile because it's a 1-star light tuner, so if you're running Chaos, you just have a light and Grave. It works as a tuner with like Gores and stuff, because 7 stars makes an 8. It's really useful. Spirit Reaper is the next card. It's up to 2 now. You can put it in your main board, it'll mess up Samurai, it'll mess up basically every deck until they get something to destroy, and then it'll protect your other cards because they're so focused on getting rid of Spirit Reaper, so that's really useful. And the last card is going to be Gorz. If you're not running Decree or Oppression or anything that'll stick around on the field for too long, you should definitely have Gorz in your main deck. It stops OTKs, and it's just a really useful card in general. It makes a 27 beater along with a 7-star token that you can sync with, and it'll just save your life more times than you can count. So you should have Gorz or Trag if you're running Decree and stuff in your main deck. And that's the end of the segment, so I'll see you later.